All right, well, we're going to get started. So we start on time, and we're going to probably have people joining in on us and that. So we are coming to you live from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. We are in Pete Lillo's man cave here. And my name is Ron Sheets, and this is Pete Lillo. Welcome for joining us. Kind of want to go over a little bit of the agenda of what we're going to try to cover in the next hour and 30 minutes. We had a call earlier at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we covered some different stuff on that one than we're going to cover in this one. So I recommend that if you get a chance, I'll be sending out a link to the replay on these. In the earlier call, in this earlier Zoom meeting, we talked about the marketing matrix. Pete talked about how you need to build 9 streams of income for your business and went through how he does that. And then I talked about pricing, specifically being able to sell at higher prices than what you're selling now. So those are 2 key things that you want to make sure that you go back and review. And again, I'll send out a link on those after we're done today. You'll get a link in the email on that. And you have to forgive me. It's bad protocol, but occasionally I'm going to look over here to my left, to your right. I have a monitor over here to kind of keep track of any questions and so forth that may come in. If you got any questions, you can put in a chat, but we may ask people to unmute you. So a bit of the agenda of what we're going to cover today. And initially, we're going to talk about Mastermind, what Mastermind is, what the Mastermind principle is, and we're going to get into talking about the Gold Crown program, which Pete started publishing quite a long time ago that I'm part of. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We really want to get into the coaches that are in there so that you have an understanding, because we have some people on with us that are members, and we're going to talk about how we think you should consume the content that comes out with that. Once we get through that, I'm going to spend about probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops on that to get us there. And then we're going to talk about some old things. Nothing you're going to hear on here is going to be new, earth-shattering stuff. In fact, you're going to hear a lot of what you're going to hear is old stuff. It's old school marketing, direct response marketing. And I'm going to make call on some of our attendees to chime in on this. I definitely want participation. I'm not looking to make this the Ron and Pete show. So if you've got a question, by all means, you can unmute yourself. I'm leaving that up to you. Jump in, interrupt us, ask a question. But we're going to get into direct mail, and we're going to talk about newsletters as to why you should do it, how you should do it. And then we're going to get into talking about the 4 things that every business should focus on. And I'm going to preempt right now and tell you what they are so that you know. It's number 1 is lists, having a customer client list and growing that list of even prospects. Number 2, it's a matter of doing monthly newsletters. And Pete's going to talk about newsletters. I'm going to get Jerry to chime in on that as well. Thirdly is follow-up, is that virtually nobody does follow-up or does it properly. And I'm going to talk about follow-up. And then we're going to talk about referral. So those are the 4 things we're going to get to. But let's kick this off. First of all, is Pete's been doing, how long have you been in marketing now? How many years?
Well, since 1969.
Okay. I don't even want to do the math. It's a long time. So you've got experience doing it. You started out in the insurance business after you got out of the Navy.
Yes.
And then many that follow you and follow Dan Kennedy know the story about how you and Dan Kennedy met. But you've talked to me about something I want you to talk about now, and that is what we'll call the new disconnect. And really, it is a disconnect.
Right.
What is it that you see is happening with businesses and so forth that you've defined as the new disconnect?
Well, the problem we have today, we have more communication today than ever before, but less people are communicating, which it doesn't make any sense. But we have all different social media sites now. We have email. But back in the old days, we had 2 things. We had direct mail, and we had the telephone. And that was how we marketed. Back in the General Cassette days, we taught telephone marketing, and we taught direct mail marketing. And today we have all these different things. Email, we have websites, we have social media sites. Zoom now, this thing, and but less people are communicating now than ever before. And Dan Kennedy and I started on the mastermind. We started with the mastermind principle. Both of us read Think and Grow Rich and The Magic of Thinking Big. We came together because of like mind, and that's how we came together in a mastermind. And that was back in 1974. And today, very few people are coming together in masterminds. They're not thinking in terms of surrounding myself with people of like mind who can help me and I can help them. And especially with this virus now, where everybody you feel like you're isolated now. Everybody's got this isolation now. I get so tired of seeing people in mass isolated in their houses, and they're not communicating with each other. And actually, I'm seeing people put themselves out of business now, especially the restaurant business is terrible because they haven't worked a way around the isolation of the thing. And we've got a lot of great restaurants in this area out of business now because they were not thinking out of the box. And they have let politicians put them out of business, which I'll tell you a quick story. Don and I went to one of our favorite pizza places down in downtown Akron the other day. I've been going there since 1958. Walked in there and they stopped me at the door and said, "You can't come in here without a mask. I don't have a mask with me." He says, "Well, you have to," and then put a napkin over your mouth. I said, "I'm not doing that." I said, "If I can't come in here and sit down, I'm leaving." So the owner followed me out arguing with me. And I said, "Look," I says, he was talking about Mike DeWine, the governor, his protocol. I says, "Does Mike DeWine come in your business and spend money?" He said, "No." "I've been coming in here since 1958 and you're driving me out of here." I said, "How ridiculous is that?" And that's what I'm talking about. There's a disconnect now between your customer and your real customer and the politicians and the people out here in the media. And until you get back to running your business and taking control of your business, you're going to go out of business. You don't want to let outside third-party people control your business. And that's what I see today.
Yeah, a big part of that is that it's your business. We see it not related. We see it with businesses where they let the employees make decisions in the business. And it's what we say, it's the tail wagging the dog.
That's another whole thing.
That's a whole different subject.
Yeah.
This is really a matter of the disconnect between you and your customers, your core customers. And that's really what we're going to be talking about here and the things that we talk about and so forth. Before we get into that content and meat, I want to talk about two things. Number one, I want to talk about the mastermind and the mastermind principle, because what you're going to experience here in the next hour or so is really the nucleus of the mastermind principle. It's a sharing of ideas. It's a sharing of experiences of like-minded people. And you're on this with us because you are, and people just telling me, we consider you as part of the 1%er. And the 1%er is probably even less than that nowadays, but 1% of the population is the evil, successful population. And the 1%ers are really those people like yourself who take the time to think logically, to think rationally, and to seek out information. You don't just take and follow somebody else's viewpoint, is that you seek out your own viewpoint through listening and hearing and consulting with and consulting with other people of like mind. And that's who's on this with us. And that is who we tend to attract. So the mastermind, based on Napoleon Hill's definition, is a group of like-minded business people and entrepreneurs who get together to share ideas, experiences, and so forth. And Pete, if you could briefly, what has your experience been with masterminds specifically, and where you've seen them morph into now?
Well, the reasons masterminds fail and the reasons why Dan and I started with the mastermind, and we started developing the mastermind, working with it. Now, our true mastermind is this. It's like this. It's not this. The Tony Robbins era of marketing seminars is this. Okay. It's via on email. If you get an email that has via in it, you can't communicate with those people. So right away, I disconnect them. I delete them. I span them out because look, If I can't do this, I don't want that. And a true mastermind is you want this. You want feedback from everybody. You want communication. I want to know your problems. You want to know my problems, and I can help you with your problems. You can help me with my problems. That's what a true mastermind is. It's like-minded people. Now, talking to Dan Kennedy the other day, we brought this up to each other. We talk about this all the time. It used to be, it was 1 in 100 men, okay, and women, in the one percenters. There were 1 percenters. That figure's changed. It's not 1 in 100 now. It's 1 in 1,000 now. Believe it or not, it's only 1 in 1,000 right now. You're on this call. Everybody that's on this call now, you're 1 in 1,000. You're not 1 in 100. So it's 1/10 of 1% now. It's not. That's not 1%
that are successful.
That are successful or seeking success. You don't have to be successful yet, but seeking success. Working before playing. Okay. Most people today, and I find this with a lot of things, as people play before they work now. My dad taught me to work before I play. It's okay to play, but you have to work first. And Dan and I, we went on trips together. He wrote 2,500 words in his hotel room before we went to breakfast. Now, how many people do that? That's why he's got 40 books out, because he writes his 2,500 words first thing in the morning. And it takes discipline. Exercise, the same thing. I was talking to Ron a little bit ago about exercise. I exercise twice a day, morning and night, every day, in higher repetitions. And I contribute this to my longevity right now. Is if I wasn't doing that, I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah. So I want to call out to a couple of people. Mark, I see that you're on with us. Mark, can you unmute yourself?
There's got to be a better way to put that.
Yeah. Take the
Unmute
muzzle off.
yourself.
Oh, here, wait a minute. I got it. I think I got it.
I think you're muting me.
There you go. All right. All right. So for those that are on the call, with us is Mark Connell, who is an attorney, financial advisor, who's not what was the moniker again? I'm at a loss for it, but the accidental attorney, is that what it was?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
So Mark is in Connecticut, and is a client of mine who I met through Dan Kennedy. And Mark is probably one of the smartest attorney financial advisors that I've known, because he's a marketer first and he understands what business he's in. So
well, I don't know, Ron. You might not know very many then.
Well, I do.
I'm the smartest.
But hey, take the compliment, man, because you're in a small group. So.
Sure.
Mark, why don't you share your experiences? Because we met in a meeting that really kind of was a mastermind meeting, but it wasn't billed as that. But why don't you share some of your experiences and benefits from being around like-minded people, mastermind specifically?
Well, just to kind of flesh out what you said about the accidental lawyer. Before I was a lawyer, I was a physical therapist. And before that, I was a molecular biologist. So Ron's probably not too far off saying I'm a pretty smart guy. And as smart as I may or may not be, I always say to people that I never had much luck in life, except for finding really good teachers. So it always seemed like whenever there was something I was curious about or something I wanted to know about, I always would stumble upon the people knew way more in that field than me, and I would track them down. Matter of fact, I knew Dan Kennedy through kind of a lineage of, I was taking Aikido classes. The guy that was the sensei of the dojo turned me on to Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich led me to Bill Hammond, who's another attorney that's a student of Dan Kennedy's. That led me to Dan Kennedy. And once I found Dan, it was at the point at which I was really trying to grow my law practice. I had made the transition from physical therapy to that, and that's a whole other story in itself. But I really built up my practice in a remarkable fashion over a very short period of time. And I don't think there's one solo practice lawyer in the country that generates the kind of revenue I do with virtually no staff, all technology. And it's really based on Dan Kennedy marketing principles. And I met Ron through Dan because Dan, with another one of his students, Dustin Burleson, had created this excellence in orthodontics program. And they decided that it was such a good program that you could clone it. So you could have excellence in blank. So I have excellence in estate planning, excellence in elder law. We met in Cleveland with Dan and Dustin and Ron. And I think there were probably 5 or 6 other professionals. There was a plastic surgeon. I think it was probably a dentist, a podiatrist. I don't remember all the players, but it's funny because Pete said something about 1 in 1,000. And, you know, Dan's always talking about the pyramid, you know, the top 20, bottom 80. And out of the 5 people who were, and now you could correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, out of the 5 people who were at this program, I think I'm the only one that actually launched it. And as a matter of fact, this coming week is the big launch. I put together a really complicated technology stack. There's 3 emails that go out to drive lawyers to a survey about COVID-19. I've got a Vince Palco whiteboard animation that it's a preview video. The preview video drives them to a webinar drives them to a phone call. There's a whole follow-up sequence in Infusionsoft. I followed Ollie Bilson's phone funnel framework, and I know Ollie Bilson through Dan Kennedy. So you have to reach out there and, you know, pick people's brains, because there's no way you could know it all. And I'm kind of a know-it-all. So, you know, coming from me, that really is the truth. So I could, you know, Ron, I could yak for 2 hours. So
No, I appreciate
take up
value. Jerry, I see you're with us, and you're muted and you got your camera off. Can you turn both of them on? So I have some questions for you.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, I got. There he is.
The world's famous Jerry Jones.
Yeah, this is the famous Jerry Jones. So Jerry and I met through Dan Kennedy, and Jerry is one of the top marketing consultants to independent dentists in the country. And Jerry, I want you to talk about Mastermind, because I've been to your Mastermind meetings. But if you can talk to the fact of the level of achievement that businesses make when they take that step to Mastermind, being in a Mastermind group versus not being in a Mastermind group.
Well, I mean, I've seen my own clients go from, I would say, you know, sub-mediocrity to a rise of excellence in a matter of months. So, you know, in the case of a dental practice, for example, you know, a practice that's not making any money, the owner's frustrated, lack of leadership, no marketing, I mean, just, you know, every problem you can think of. And within literally a period of months, massive transformation. Now, having said that, it takes a unique individual to accomplish that, for sure. And I think without the people around to elevate that individual, and without that individual being receptive to that, it's not going to happen. So I look at my own business and I watch the effect of others on masterminds, and it's tremendous. I've developed my own informal masterminds, you know, among people locally, business owners that are in completely different business arenas than what I'm in, as well as, you know, on a broader scale with folks like Ron and Pete. So it's life-changing, it's business-changing. I mean, there's no question, and it can happen very rapidly. A lot of it depends on the urgency level, you know, where the individual's at in terms of urgency. And and how important it is for them to make those changes. And so I find that those who are affected the most, the fastest, are those who are, they've been beat up and they're just tired of being tired, and they finally find the right group of people to take them to another level that they just didn't believe was possible.
Well said. Well said. And to Jerry's point about casual, the Rock Revival T-shirt.
Hey, I have to wear a collared shirt 4 days a week. That's enough.
I know.
By the way, I've got a signed AC/DC guitar back in my office. You might-
I have one if it's required. Here we go.
Nah,
This is for the clients.
Yeah. So, but you, Mark, you're one of the most casual guys. Jerry's one of the most casual guys, and I think the thing there's a lesson in that is that you can often tell the unsuccessful people because they tend to be they're unhappy and they're trying to be something that they're not.
Yeah.
And here are two guys that what you see is what you get, and they're successful and don't have to make any excuses for it. So off the beaten path. So thank you guys.
But it was also, it's sort of done on purpose as well, because, after kind of working with some of Sidney Biddle-Barrow's ideas about how to structure, your office and your persona and your practice, most lawyers are all kind of stiff, stuffed shirt characters. And the best way to distinguish myself was to not be that.
Mhm.
And people love it. The clients love it.
Yeah, good. Well, I think that's a good segue, and I'm going to skip over a thing here, Pete, in the interest of, because I think we'll come back to it.
Go ahead.
But I think it's a good segue if we get in and talk about newsletters. And Mark, if you don't mind, and Jerry, if you don't mind, we'll have you chime in on this. But newsletters for a business, and this is one of the core things that every business should do. And I know Mark is doing a newsletter. Jerry does newsletters for his clients, and we'll chime in on this and that. But Pete, you've been doing newsletters for a long time.
Very long.
And talk about the newsletter as a core piece. And I know Mark has got some things to talk about, and Jerry does as well. But as a core piece in the business. And before you do that, I want to set the stage. I've been doing a printed newsletter monthly for as long as I've been in business. And number one, and this is going to identify with, number one, it's a pain in the ass to do every month if you don't have a system for doing it.
Get that discipline.
It's a pain in the ass. And you talked about discipline. And number two is that if it's not done correctly, that it is what people view as a waste of money, is that they get nothing out of it. All right. So Pete, why don't you talk to the fact of a newsletter and the mindset, what it should be, how you should do it, and its structure. And then I want to have Jerry and Mark chime in on this, and I want to share some stuff from my own experience.
This is coming from a printer now. Neither Dan or I believe in business cards. Now, I'm a printer, and I don't believe in business cards. Your newsletter should be your business card. Now, your newsletter, if you put that newsletter out every month, it's going to go out there and sit on somebody's desk. It's going to arrive in somebody's post office box. But that is an extension of you, more so than a business card that gets lost in the drawer or thrown in the trash. Your newsletter comes every month. You can sell your products in your newsletter. You can present your business in that newsletter. But the important thing about a newsletter is that's your business. That's an extension of your business that people people won't see unless they get that newsletter. And I learned that early on in the insurance business. 57 agents in the office. I was the youngest in the office, not married. I was doing a newsletter. All the other agents laughed at me because I was putting a newsletter out to my customers. But as time went on, I was always the number one guy on the leaderboard. And they would all come to me and say, Pete, how are you doing it? Well, I'm not doing it the way you guys are doing it. I put out a newsletter. I personalized all my stationery, my brochures, and all my things were personalized. I put out thank you notes. I put out birthday cards. And I look at selling as I was selling myself more than the product. So if you consider yourself in business, you should be selling yourself. And the best way to sell yourself is with a newsletter.
So,
Number one.
Jerry and I have had, we've done a podcast on newsletters, and Mark does a monthly newsletter. I want to share, I'm going to get to these two guys, but I want to share something, my own experience with newsletters. So one of the things I hear when I talk to clients that they should do a newsletter, and I don't do newsletters for them. You do that. Jerry does that for his clients. They do the newsletters. But I hear from clients, and they'll tell me, oh, we tried to do a newsletter, and we didn't make any money from it. We didn't make any money from it. And there's a couple of ways, and I want Mark to talk to the fact, because Mark actually does generate money directly from his newsletter. I generate money indirectly from my newsletter. And to give you an example, so one of my clients, one of my longest running clients, is the state of Massachusetts, specifically the Massachusetts State Police. They're a government agency, and any type of buying that they do, they have to go out for 3 bids. So generally you're in a bid situation when you have to, you want to sell to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Back in 1997, I went through that process once, and I've been serving them since 1997 and have never had to provide another bid on anything. I do the same project with them year after year, but I've never had to go out for a bid. And the one piece, the one and only piece, because I can't sell them other stuff outside of that without going through a bid process, but the one piece, the single one thing that has consistently gone to them every month for the last 20, whatever that is, 20 some years, has been a printed newsletter. It shows up on their desk in their mailbox, and I send it to, it's roughly 10 people that are the key people there every month. So if you do the math, what's a newsletter cost to print? Maybe with postage, buck and a quarter. Okay, it's cheap. So let's say I do 10 of those a month. So let's say it's $15. Every month, 15 times 12 is over. It's like $165, $170. Every year, it costs me $170 to send to them. Okay. And as you said, my newsletter is me. That client since 1997 has been worth over $500,000 to me.
There you go.
And the only piece that they get, that they see, that they read, that makes it is the newsletter. So indirectly, that's selling. Now, are they buying straight out? No, but like you said, they're buying me, and they continue to buy me. So Mark, could you talk about your newsletter and what you do and how you use it in your business, and specifically you make money from it?
Oh, definitely. One of the things that I always enjoyed was Dan Kennedy's line about, to paraphrase, if your newsletter is like sex, if it's not working, you're doing it wrong. So, to say that you're sending out a newsletter, it doesn't mean that it's going to naturally be successful. And another Dan Kennedy concept with newsletters is it should be 20% meat, 80% potatoes. For me, I'm in a pretty technical field, and if I write a technical newsletter, it's going to be pretty boring very quickly.
That's the meat.
You're right. That's the meat. But there has to be something in there, because the focus has to be to highlight problems and then to promote yourself as the solution to those problems. And that's how I write my newsletters. And my newsletters are pretty straightforward. I have a format of, there's a lead article that's about 600 words, 2 smaller articles that are about 300 words. There's a cartoon, there's a word search. It's a bifold sort of self-mailer, where you take a double-sided sheet. I mean, Pete the printer would know better about this sort of thing. It's a little bit odd-sized paper, but the paper's kind of folded. So it's a little booklet, and that folds in half, and it's a self-mailer with a little tab on it. On the postage side, there's the addresses, but on the flip side, it has a breaking news article, and then usually some kind of a pitch for a seminar that I'm going to be doing. So even on the outside of the fold, it shows something about me. And I always try to include stories either from my past or current client files, because anything that's abstract is going to be kind of boring. But if you couch it in some reality, you explain how a client went through a process. Or, I talk about, when I was an Olympic weightlifter, when I was a kid, I talk about when I was a physical therapist. But the whole idea is building me as the solution to the problem and accentuating the problems that I solve. And it doesn't cost that much. I mean, and as far as making money, I did the same seminar. I followed Gene Kennedy's kind of magnetic marketing concept where I do a seminar every time I did a presentation. So for about 8 years, 7 or 8 times a year, I did the same exact seminar. And I would send out a 3-step letter campaign right from magnetic marketing. I'd get a list of about 5,000 people. I'd get 150 people in a room. Anybody that comes in contact with me gets on the newsletter list. I built up that list so big that I don't do the seminars anymore. I haven't done them for 3.5 years. And I don't really do any other advertising other than a website. And the newsletter generates all my business now. And the part that people miss, I think a lot of times, is it may not generate new business from the people you're sending it out to, because a lot of them are already my clients, but it's referrals. A friend, a neighbor, a family member has a problem, Mark's the guy. But even with that said, when 150 people came into the seminar, about 2/3 were buying units, because some of them were married couples. And out of those 2/3, about half of them would book an appointment right on the spot. And most of those closed. I'd say probably 75, 85%. But there was a lot of appointment, no sales, and a lot of come to the seminar, no appointments. And a year, 2 years, 3 years, I think the furthest out I've gone is I've had somebody come in 7 years. They've been getting the newsletter every single month. And they came in and they had 3 businesses that they wanted me to help them gear up the valuation for sales. It was a real high net worth estate planning client. I think my fees, were probably in the $20,000 range. So just because I sent the guy a mailing for 7 years, where else are you going to get that kind of a client?
Yeah.
And he brought in his kids because they were going to be taking over the businesses. It ended up mushrooming out. And that's the thing that I think it was Jim Rome, he used to talk about, seeds, sunshine, water. Each one of those newsletters is a little seed out there. You don't know which one's going to pop up. And it is tough. It's not easy to spit out these words. I mean, I marvel at when Pete said something about Dan sits down and writes 2,500 words a day.
Every
Like,
morning.
holy moly, that ain't easy. So even with, I use Foster Web Marketing, who I learned from Ben Glass, so I've been working with Tom Foster, and he's got me, he says, I know it's hard, so why don't you do videos and transcribe the videos? So I think I'm going to be going to that. But again, the newsletter for 3.5 years has generated $500,000 a year business for me.
Yeah.
With no other marketing, none. I mean, zero. I don't run ads. I don't do radio spots. I don't do TV ads. And I don't even know where my business cards are. When we're somewhere and somebody will say, do you have a business card? And my wife will roll her eyes and she goes, oh, he doesn't carry those. And she'll dig in her pocketbook and find one.
Yeah.
So really, I think I spend maybe $250 on printing, maybe another $250 on postage. For $500 a month, you can't beat it.
Yeah.
But you do have to sit down and do it. I mean, that's the downside.
From you. It's from you. It's about you and that type of thing.
And I thought of using Sean Buck at one point, with Newsletter Pro, and it just, it doesn't have the same flavor.
Yeah.
You
want it to be from you. It's got to be personalized. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. I want to share something. I want to jump back on what you said about business cards and that you don't have business cards, don't know where they're at. Specifically with relation to that, and I'm going to mute you here for a second, Mark. There we go. Specifically with regards to business cards, I don't have business cards. And I'm going to share a little piece that I do, because when you meet somebody the first time, what do? You exchange business cards. Why does somebody ask you for a business card? What do they want? They want your name, they want your address, they want your telephone number, and they want your email address. Okay? And but what does a business card do? That's all it does. When somebody comes to me and I meet them for the first time, they will say to me, well, give me a business card. I say to them, I don't have a business card, which first is pattern interrupt in marketing. It's pattern interrupt because they don't expect you to say that, because everybody's got a business card. And that is the strangest secret, see what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. Okay. So I say, I don't have a business card, to which their response is, what do you mean you don't have a business card? And I say to them well, let me ask you a question. Why do you want my business card? Because you want my name, my address, my telephone number, my email address. You want my contact information, correct? Yes. I'll say, great. Tell you what, you give me your business card and I'm going to mail you my newsletter. And in there is my name, my address, my telephone number, my email address. But also, you're going to find out more about me, and you're going to learn more about what I do, what my clients say. You're going to learn more about me, which is really what you should be interested in, not just my contact information. So what have I just done? I've just lead generated. All right. I've just lead generated. I've gotten there, and I don't have to carry business cards with me. I don't have to. What I've done is I've used the newsletter as a way of give me your information. And I'm going to then, in turn, that gives me permission to follow up with them.
Well, years ago, I created what's called the world's smallest newsletter. In fact, I'm running the clients from years ago that still use that. But I created what I call the world's smallest newsletter, which is a postcard. Now, if you can't put out a newsletter a month, you can put out a postcard every month. And you can also use that postcard for a business card. And you can condense a newsletter down to a postcard size, information on the back and the front, and put that out to your clients every month as the world's smallest postcard or newsletter. And it's amazing how many people I send that out. I've got clients that get a hold of me. I've got clients now in the Gold Crown program that use that program. They didn't even know where that came from, but it came from Pete the Printer years ago. And because I had an aversion to business cards. I just didn't like business cards. Yeah. But a postcard sent out to somebody monthly is your business card plus is your newsletter, and it's in front of people.
To wrap up, Jerry, again, I get yourself muted. And Jerry, you want to chime in on this, because Jerry, you send out millions, if not close to billions, of newsletters for clients. Do you want to chime in on this at all, Jerry, and give some of your feedback on newsletters specifically? Because initially the aversion is, oh, I got to write it, I got to print it. Yeah. What's your position on newsletters?
I sell them, so I've got a pretty forceful position.
Which is why I'm asking.
If you're not doing them, you're just causing yourself a disservice, and you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Everything from referrals that were talked about by Mark and to that building that long-term relationship. Ron, you've got the great relationship with Massachusetts State Police. I've kept businesses alive long past their expiration date, all because of a newsletter. I've kept money coming in that maybe shouldn't have been coming in if it weren't for a newsletter. So every business I've owned, and I'm not quite as educated as Mark. I only have 1 degree to Mark's 38 degrees, but every business I've owned, and I've owned several, I think February marked number 22 or something like that I've bought, sold, or started. So that business, the first thing I did from a marketing standpoint was create a newsletter. And you don't have to write all the content yourself. That's the nice part. I write the lead article. I have an attorney write an article, and then I have a business partner write another article. So the content is, don't get hung up on the content. Just get the process going. And the longer you wait, the more money you're going to lose, frankly, that you shouldn't. So, we send out up prior to COVID. I've noticed nobody said anything about COVID.
Right,
Except for
not-
Pete. Maybe Pete a little bit in the morning here or earlier, but
Not really.
you know, I mean, pre-COVID, we were mailing out, you know, tens of thousands of pieces a month, just in newsletters, let alone postcards. That was a lot more than that. So over the years, we've mailed millions and millions and millions of pieces of direct mail, and most of it newsletters. And they are simply the best marketing you can do for a business that typically is personality based, like most of our businesses. I mean, they're simply the best tool there is. There's nothing better. And I guess, you know, from my perspective, Ron, that's a great place to spend money. I mean, it's the single greatest place to spend money if you're going to spend it.
I want you to talk about something that's a little closer to home, specifically about newsletters, and talk about your daughter, and that you and your daughter have gone into business pretty much together in real estate. And talk about, she publishes out a newsletter. Talk about what that has done for her business.
Sure. So, you know, 21-year-old young lady, she's been in the real estate business for about 4 years.
Amazing.
She's been a broker for almost 2. One of the very first things that I said to her, hey, you need to write a newsletter. I don't care if it's 1 page, 2 pages, or 20, but it's something you need to do. And she took that to heart and created her own brand, if you will. It's called the Real Estate Rodeo. And every month she sends out a newsletter to about 350 prospects or past or current clients. She uses it to farm. So in the real estate industry, that's typically, it's picking an area that you want to get business from and you mail it. So it's just
Great.
repetitious mailing. You know, Pete, you're familiar with farming. And she does that. And I mean, she picks off a pretty significant client about once a quarter. And that'll, of course, the frequency of those will improve and increase over time. But once a quarter, she's picking off a client that's worth, you know, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 or more in her pocket. And as a 21-year-old, that's a pretty significant amount of money. No college debt. You know, she doesn't own a home yet, so she doesn't have any debt. So it's, you know, it's good money. That might be $20,000 or $30,000 to the rest of us. So it's been a fantastic tool, and she is the only one in her entire organization. I think she's the only real estate broker I know of in the entire Salem area that sends out a newsletter.
Wow.
I have a commercial property management company, and that's the latest business I bought. And we send out a newsletter every month as well. And by the way, we've turned that into a revenue producer just this month to create stronger relationships with commercial brokers who can refer business to my company. We're now including, and they are now paying for including, a property flyer inside our newsletter. And so this month, for the first time, we have a single page flyer. The broker paid a couple $100. So I'm literally sending my newsletter out at virtually no cost. Given a few other tips or tricks of the trade that I know, it's, you know, I'm basically sending out 630 newsletters for zero. And so, you know, there's things like that you can learn and tweak over time. But that becomes now a relationship builder. And I hope to have, in a matter of a few months, brokers jockeying and fighting for position in that newsletter. And so it gives, you know, gives us credibility, but it also gives that broker a linkage with, you know, the best commercial property management company in Oregon. So of course we are. So that, you know, that there's a lot of things like that you can do that you can't do with websites, right? I mean, if I put a blog post on my website from some commercial broker, there's like 5 people that are going to see it. And frankly, no one cares. So the printed word still carries a lot more weight than something online. Anybody can put anything online. It's not hard. So the print process is completely different, and I think it provides a higher level of notoriety. One more quick example, Ron. I was downtown Tuesday, and I was just doing a walk around of one of our buildings, and the neighboring property owner was there. I recognized him only from a caricature on the front of his bar. So he has a bar downtown called Magoo's. Ron, you've been within 10 feet of it, I'm sure, because when you were here in Salem, you were downtown with me. And anyway, there's a little bar called Magoo's, and this guy's had this bar there for 40 years, maybe 50 years. and he owns half of the block. No joke. He owns most of the area in downtown Salem. And so I saw him and I thought, that's got to be Magoo. That's got to be Jim. So I walked over and I said, "Hey, Jim." He goes, "Hey, you're Jerry, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I recognize your picture from your newsletter." So he's been getting my newsletter because he's a client. He's indirectly a client. Plus he's a neighbor of one of our properties that we manage. So, instant recognition, instant, there's just no, who are you? Why are you here? None of that. It's like, oh, I know you. I agree with the things you write. I like what you're doing. Good to meet you. Let's go grab a beer. It was that kind of instant rapport. You can't get that in very many other ways. That's a huge value.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you. The thing we don't have time to get into, that Jerry and I've talked about, Mark and I've talked about, Pete and I've talked about, is the fact that your newsletter is media, and it's owned media, which, don't miss the point that Jerry made with regard to the people buying into his newsletter and him basically writing along free in his own newsletter, because he sold space. This is owned media. And the important thing to understand that Mark got to as well is that when you have your own newsletter, you get to publish whatever you want. You own it. It's your voice. So the important thing really is to not miss out on the idea that a newsletter is your magazine. It is your publication. It is your communication with your constituency, your prospects, your clients, your customers, your patients. It is your way of communicating with them. And the important thing that Mark pointed out with regards to the meat and the potatoes is it shouldn't be about your business. It shouldn't be about the deliverable. It should be about you and what you're doing, because there's a lot more character in that.
And it's an extension of your business.
Yeah.
So it's more than just a business card, or it's actually you out there.
Yeah. Well, Mark pointed it out, the 2080, is that you should have some business in there, because they should know what you're doing and so forth.
And another thing is the pass along factor. The pass along factor is you're not able to do that in any other type of marketing. Your business, your newsletter is sitting on a desk. Somebody else picks it up, looks at it and says, "Oh, I'm interested in this."
Jerry's point about the fact that, oh, you're Jerry Jones. I swear.
There you go. It happened right there.
Yeah. So good. I think we've kind of discussed, there's a lot more about newsletters we can talk about, but this is the important thing to understand, is you should be doing a newsletter. It kind of leads us to the next subject, which is lists. And this is an area that I think I see many businesses making the mistake in, is not understanding that the true value in the business is with the people you already have as customers, clients, or patients, or the people that you put into a list that are prospective buyers. And I talked about how I use the newsletter in order to get the contact information. That's my way of aggressively putting them onto a list, getting permission to market to them. So Pete, why don't you talk about, as a printer, lists and the value of lists and the real money, because we won't get into it, but the progression of businesses, the real value in it. So when people look to buy a business, who's the list?
When I broke out of the insurance business in 1973 and started the printing business, I knew the value right then of the client. The client was, I transitioned clients from the insurance business to the printing business, but it was a lot easier to sell them in the printing business than it was the insurance business. And I started grading my clients on a monthly grade, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star. The top clients were the most repeaters. They got 4 stars. Next down were 3 star, 2 star, 1 star were usually every 6 months. But I even started upgrading 1 star to 2 star, 2 star to 3 star, 3 star to 4 star, where I would have more clients in, with 4 stars. That meant I had more contact with those clients, the Wendy's and the Dr. Coopers and the people who were the Brown Derbies. They started moving up on my list to the point where I was having more 4-star clients, which were bringing me more money per month and also more referrals per month. And I found my best clients were bringing me more clients. So that was the key to that. So I developed that 4-star system, which I believe in cultivating your list to the point where you're even using your list to upgrade your clientele. And that's how important the client list is.
Mm-hmm.
And very few businesses today utilize their lists. They might have a list and they don't use it. And I'm thinking, how many times you mailed it? Oh, we don't mail at all. I says, you've got money sitting on the table there
Mm-hmm.
that you could be using. So yeah, your list is very important. I mean, developing your list is very important. And I contribute my success over the years to developing my list.
And it's something that as in like the time we're in,
Yeah.
where we're not able,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of money for marketing or advertising right now. We've
Right.
got lists and so forth. I'd like to call out, Borbala, can you unmute yourself? And if you've got video, can you turn it on? Because we've got Borbala on the call with us. Let's see if she's able to log on here. I'm going to ask her to unmute because I want to have her talk about her business because she has a very unique business. There she is.
Hello.
Hello there.
Try to put my video on.
So there it is. So good morning.
Trying
Good
to find it. Good morning. Quiet spot.
Yeah,
With
I
four
know
kids
I'm
in the background.
asking this, Borbala. But Borbala, why don't you tell people that are on here what your business is, what you do, what your deliverable, and then I've got some questions for you because I kind of know your history. So I'm asking you to get involved because I think you've got some important stuff to add. So
I
first of
was
all,
totally not prepared for this, but
that's okay. That's
thank
okay.
you.
But this is mastermind. This is really, here
Okay.
to have stuff. So tell us about your business.
So I own a boutique CPA firm in Brecksville with clients all around the US and internationally. And what we say we do is we help you beat the IRS legally and also understand your numbers and help you grow your business with understanding the numbers and being able to make better decisions.
Good. So here, what she said, she's a boutique CPA,
Mhm.
and kind of like Mark as an attorney and financial advisor, there's not a lot of CPAs. There are CPAs that are smart marketers. Borbala is one of them. But what I'd like you to talk about, Borbala, is what you do in your business as a CPA to lead generate, to build your list. If you can share some of the things that you do.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is the biggest and the most important thing that I can do for my business as a business owner. And being a CPA comes maybe number 3, not even number 2. What I do is I do send out a newsletter monthly to my clients. I do a weekly email with a little video in it, not any like boring accountant stuff. In the newsletter, mostly we talk about maybe a celebrity running into tax trouble, maybe about members of my firm, and we spotlight clients and just have some like funny things, recipes and stuff like that. So I do that. Anybody, just like how people mentioned before me, anybody I know, I get to know, I put them on the list for the newsletter, for the email. I mean, before COVID, I did seminars. Now I'm starting to do online. Most of my clients are law firms and professional firms. So with the law firms, it's very easy to do continuing education classes that they have to do. So I get a lot of clients. Most likely, I never walked away from a seminar without a client.
So how have these, for lack of a better term, exercises in what you're doing, you said the marketing is the first thing and most important to your business now, but what kind of an impact has it had on the business? And speak to the value of the people you're putting in through these mediums, as well as the residual effect it's having for the business long term.
Putting people on my list and maybe them becoming client after 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, it has been, like, since I started 9 years ago, has been phenomenal. Um, we are a premium, I mean, we are a boutique firm, so with premium prices, very like high-end services. We take care of our clients. We send them, you know, birthday gifts, anniversary gifts, all kinds of birthday cards, all kinds of things. Keeping in touch with them in person. I have an assistant who calls them regularly if we can help them with anything else. Has the marketing that we do helped us to run now a very profitable, kind of like a lifestyle practice, since I have 4 very little kids as well that I have to take care of. So has been everything. Marketing has been everything. I'm in mastermind with a lot of other CPAs, and I hear, you know, what their price range is, how like their low-end clients, the struggles, and I just feel sorry for them.
You can't feel sorry for stupid people. But you can't feel sorry for stupid people. Thank you, Borbala. I appreciate that. I want to open this up for Marie or Tom or Dave and so forth. If you can chime in and talk about how you have, if you've got lists, and how you may be monetizing the lists. And what I mean by that is not necessarily getting money out of them initially, but trying to monetize them. Thank you, Borbala. So if Tom, Dave, or Marie want to chime in, if you've got anything you want to share, I'm going to give it a moment here. Unmute yourself, turn on your video, and love to hear from you. Thank you, Marie.
I'll not chime in. I kind of jumped on this just because I'm involved with a real estate association here locally, and we're trying to figure out how do we redo the association, redo our procedures and policies with COVID. And I figured watching the pros do a Zoom meeting would be a good place to start.
So
But on the news,
how are we doing so far?
yeah, it's been interesting. I got some ideas.
Good.
On the newsletter front, we're doing, I'm also the newsletter editor, so that I didn't know you were going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We're doing mostly email newsletters. How important do you think it is? You guys have been talking printed. Is there like a huge difference?
Big difference.
Huge difference. So you want to talk to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the printed newsletter is the premium. This is the primo. Now, you can do an email newsletter in addition to your printed newsletter, but not exclusively without it. In other words, an email newsletter doesn't have the power of a printed newsletter. Now, you can do them both together, the same newsletter, email and printed. And Dan Cricks and I used to talk about that. And you know, you do the printed newsletter, then you can do an email newsletter. You can do the same newsletter by email, but don't do an email newsletter exclusively, because it really doesn't work as well. And I've had clients try that, and or go more than every other month, or it's got to be monthly. Quarterly newsletters really don't work. It's too long of a gap.
Right. I understand that a newsletter is a communication. It's an ongoing conversation with the people that you have on your list, and you want to have that ongoing conversation. So it's like the monthly get together over coffee and that type of thing. Mark talked about it a little bit earlier as far as the meat and potatoes, the 20% meat, 80% potatoes. It's a matter of what you're really selling in the newsletter is you. And you do that most importantly in printed, because there's a tactile value in that. Aside from the tactile value, there's what I call the real estate value. So it's showing up every month in the mailbox. And I'm going to have Mark, so get ready, Mark. I'm going to have you chime in on this. But showing up in the mailbox every month. And there is great value in showing up at the same time every month. And if you really want to get a boost, is when you do a printed newsletter, you send it out monthly. If you miss a month, or you miss when it's delivery, and the people start calling going, hey, did you send out the newsletter? I missed it. Did I not get it? Am I not on your list? Then you know you've got great value. And the best, so here's the way I learned it. I first heard it from Kennedy with regard to printed or email. So try this. So if you have a parent or a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, somebody who's over 55, 60 years old, all right? And it comes time for their birthday. It comes to their birthday. And you go online and you send them an email birthday card. And they receive an email birthday card. Or you go and you send them an actual birthday card. Which do you think is going to be more valuable to them? Perceived value, not the value of the birthday wish, but the perceived value in the relationship. All right, so you don't have to answer that. I'll tell you.
No.
So I know if I send my mother, or if I sent my grandmother or grandfather who have passed away, God rest their soul, if I would send a email birthday card, they would get it. They would go, oh, that's nice. Nice that they thought of me. But the bastard was too cheap to go out and give me a
Put a
birthday
stamp
card.
on the card.
Okay. So here's the difference. So if I send a birthday card, I got to get in my car. I got to go out to the store. I have to read through the birthday cards. I have to pick a birthday card that has the sentiment and the message that I want. I have to write in it. I have to hand address the envelope. I have to lick the envelope, close it. I have to put a stamp on it. All right. What have I just demonstrated in value of the relationship between those two? The printed is of greater value. I am communicating unconsciously that my relationship with you is of greater value because I am willing to go to greater lengths and greater expense to send you a birthday card. It's the same with a printed newsletter. All right. So Mark, if you would unmute and come back with us. Mark, you talked about what you invest on a monthly basis on a newsletter and send it out and so forth. Talk about the value difference to Marie's point with regard to printed versus email and what you found.
You said Mark.
Do I have to unmute you, Mark? I'm sorry. Oh, I got to unmute you. I got doggone it. I'm sorry.
There you
Go
go.
ahead, Mark.
There you go.
You're on.
It's funny that I wasn't thinking about this as you were saying it, but at one point we had shifted from a snail mail newsletter to an email newsletter with constant contact, and the response dropped off the cliff. I mean, it was as if I hadn't sent it. It was almost just a waste of time. But as far as the regularity of showing up every month, in all honesty, people forget about you pretty quickly. You are not top of mind with anybody, especially in a field like mine. So showing up all the time, every month, it really has that factor of making you unforgettable because you're there every month. And the other part of it too is, I can't tell you how many people will say to me, I didn't know you did that. And just to give you one instance, I mean, I'm an estate planning lawyer. I write trusts, I create wills. People will say to me, oh, I didn't know you did probate work. I mean, it's like saying, I didn't know there was a tails on the other side of the head of a coin. So it gives you an opportunity to sort of highlight each of the little, I always think of Jay Abraham when I think of this, is that he used to call it the Parthenon strategy of having, sort of multiple columns. And I call it my umbrella, so the umbrella of my practice is I'm an asset protection lawyer. But underneath that umbrella are all these other columns. And you have to remind people what you do. So not only will they forget all about you, but even if they remember who you are, they won't remember what you do. And there's no other way that you could possibly do this than with a paper, mail newsletter. And, you know, I wanted to loop back just for 1 second, Ron, about something that Jerry said. Also, when you do content, you could repurpose it, use it for something else. You know, you write a newsletter, okay, it's a blog post. You wrote the blog post in the article, well, now do a YouTube video. You did that, you put it on a postcard, like Pete said. I mean, you could go on to eZine articles and publish the article with your footer that brings them to your website. You know, that's another thing that I learned from Dan. It's, you know, repurpose, you know, use every part of the pig.
That's an excellent point. So thank you, Mark. Hopefully, Marie, does that answer your question? She's muted. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. You jumped in with something and I had muted you.
I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just that you don't underestimate how forgettable you are.
Oh, that's an important point.
That's true.
That's an important point. We think people don't buy from us because they don't like us. They don't buy from us because they forget about us. That's an excellent point. That's a whole conversation unto itself. Very key. And we'll loop back to this, I think, in another meeting, because Pete and I were talking about doing this kind of a thing on a monthly basis on a subject level. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you for a second, Mark. So don't take it personally.
You know, I was going to add, you know, this COVID has hurt a lot of people's businesses, but it's also helped a lot of businesses. Now, our Elite Gold Crown coaching program, I actually have people contact me by email. I haven't got my Elite Gold Crown coaching program yet this month. Now, it's not that we have, you know, it might be a day delayed in a day, but we haven't lost anybody in this program during this whole COVID virus thing. Only one person has dropped out of the Elite Gold Crown program because they retired. They actually apologized to me. But they're retired and they really are not in business anymore.
Yeah.
So the importance of the newsletter, people are looking forward to getting these newsletters. Mm-hmm. It's not that they're getting a newsletter. They want the content of these newsletters. Yep. And so your newsletter is very important. I mean, it's like the physical newsletter is very important. And emailing is not the same.
No,
it is not the same.
No,
not the same.
Keeping an eye on the clock. Let's move on. We've talked about newsletters. We've talked a little bit about lists. And what I want to touch on next is follow-up.
Yeah.
So follow-up. And I want to springboard off of something that Mark mentioned earlier, which is a term that he used, specifically appointment no sale. Mark used that term. And that is actually something that Mark and I have worked on together out of the seminar get-together he talked about with Kennedy and Burleson. But that's an important thing. So the four things that every business should be doing, especially now with the COVID thing. Lists, you should be working on lists, you should be communicating with that list, and you should be communicating with them by newsletter every month. But it's also a matter of follow-up. So in our earlier session, I referred to my primary market, which is dentists, and I'll just refer to it for perspective, is that the average dental practice has between $500,000 and $1 million of quoted treatment that goes undone or unscheduled. And what that means is that a patient's been presented a dental treatment, implants, extraction, dentures, bridges, crowns, whatever. They've been presented this and they don't move forward with the treatment. It's lost money. $500,000 to $1 million. Now, your business has the same thing. So if you take and you look at who you have that you've talked to in the past, that you've presented to, that you've pitched to, that you've sold to, if you look at who you have in that list, that is found money. And to put it in perspective, you have paid to get that prospect. You've invested it in the front end marketing. It costs you little to nothing to follow up with them. So Pete, if you can share a story from your insurance days, and then I want to get into something else, but from your insurance days, you were the youngest and top salesman in the Prudential office.
The success I had with Prudential Insurance actually led to my leaving Prudential Insurance because I did things differently than everybody else in the office. Led for me to having to leave because the manager called me in his office one day and he said, "Pete, you're not coming to the Friday morning meetings." I says, "That's when I'm out selling." And he says, "Well, you have to." I said, "Why don't you have the meeting on Wednesday or Monday morning?" They couldn't do that. They wouldn't change that. So that's when I left Prudential, right at that point, because my manager said to me, he said, "You'd be better off in business for yourself." He actually gave me the push out the door. That's when I started my own business. And because you didn't want to be in that box, you want to take yourself out of that box. That caused you to change. It caused you to move on. And Dan Kennedy and I have always been big believers in getting out of the box. Everybody's in a box of some kind. It's how big is the box? Is it a small box? Is it a big box? And part of the reasons people become successful is because they finally figure out, hey, I'm in this box over here. I got to get out of this box. I'm like everybody else over here. So I have to move out of the box. And once you learn to move out of that box and put yourself around people who take themselves out of that box, that's when success comes your way.
Yeah. And one of those boxes is missing the opportunities that we've already presented. So
That's right.
I know Dan has talked about this publicly. We've talked about it
Yeah.
when he was on the success seminars,
Peter Lowe
the
events.
Peter Lowe events, and that he would go and he would present. And after he made a presentation to 5,000 people in the audience, he would take the lists that didn't buy.
That's how we built the business.
And then he followed up on them.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling of the conversations that he would have with Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins and Brian Tracy. And he would talk about, here's what I'm doing. I'm following up on these and I'm getting more from the follow-up than I got from the front end because I got the list. So again, this is list importance.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, and Zig Ziglar would say, it's too much work. It's too much hassle. I don't want to do that. I just went and presented my best stuff and they didn't buy. Screw them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but so I want to talk a little bit about the follow-up. So one of the things that we created, Mark talked about this a little bit, and it's springboarded out of the Excellence in Orthodontics program that Mark had mentioned that Dan and I did with Dr. Dustin Burleson in Kansas City. And one of the pieces in that program, a really linchpin piece in that program, was what we call affectionately the appointment no sale message. And it is it's rooted in a video that is communicated to the prospect who didn't buy from a spokesperson. And just give you a little bit, the value of having this in video, number one, is a communication, because people consume better visually, audibly, and so forth. But having a spokesperson present this stuff is that it gives you, the business owner, the opportunity to say things to the prospect that you may not be comfortable saying, you may not be comfortable talking about. And when it's coming from a spokesperson, it's still important. So to give you an example, in an appointment no sale, what are one of the things that you should talk to people about? What's one of the reasons they didn't buy? They didn't buy because it was too expensive. So how do we deal with price? We're all fearful for price. And I refer you back to our earlier meeting where I got into price and selling higher. But we're afraid to talk about price. Well, price is really, overcoming price is really nothing more than elevating value.
There you go.
Elevating value over and above the price we're asking for it. And oftentimes the value is in what they're buying, not what we're selling. So in our conversation earlier, I talked with Jill Woolforth extensively with the Texas Baseball Ranch, who Jill and Ron and I are doing work, and Pete does work with them. But we talked about how to get over price. And Jill talked about how they today are selling their program at a 5x price point over and above what they did sell it at. And one of the ways they got to it is by eliminating the price conversation. And the way that you do that is by elevating value. So here's the point. The point is that when people get hung up on price, you need to understand it's not about the price. It's not that they have not been educated on the value of what they're buying. So Jill's example of the business they're in, they've got a pitching coaching camp. That's their deliverable. But she said, importantly, she said, they're in the hopes and dreams business. They're in achieving the hopes and dreams of a young pitcher who wants to aspire to the next level, whatever that is. So when you present content that elevates to that end, to what the prospect, the buyer really wants. Dentists are not in the teeth fixing business. They're in the psychology business primarily. They're in the business of elevating a person's self-worth, self-esteem, and self-confidence. All right? Mark is not in the asset protection business. He's in the business of securing lifestyle. He is in the business of legacy, being able to pass on to the family members. And Mark sells expertly at doing this. And what really, he talked about it. He doesn't do a lot of marketing advertising. He doesn't have to. All right. So here's the key point I want to bring with your follow-up. When you think about follow-up communication, is number one, you must do it. You must do follow-up communication. And it cannot be a one and done. It's got to be a communicate until they buy or die. All right. So you just keep going. Again, newsletter, they don't forget about you. They keep going. All right. But here's the key thing to understand about adding value in your follow-up. And this is what we baked in our appointment no sale program. This is the foundation understanding of it. Is that when you present your product or your service and you present a price and the person doesn't buy, they don't buy for whatever reason. And that reason is in their head. It's not yours. Something didn't click. You didn't hit a hot button in their head. And oftentimes, here's what follow-up looks and sounds like. I'll give you an example from the dentist. Hi, we presented a dental treatment to you 2 weeks ago, and you didn't go forward with that. So we're just following up to see, are you ready to get started with that? Well, what we're asking them to do is we're asking them to make a new decision based on the same information they got. So here's the switch. People don't change their mind. They make a new decision based on new information. So when you're designing follow-up and you're doing follow-up, you've got to look at what is it you're communicating to them. Are you communicating and regurgitating the same stuff they already know? Or are you creating and communicating new reasons, not new to you, but new to them? Is again, you're looking to add value. Because when price in their mind is up here and value is here, as you add value, this goes up and surpasses price. And the price is lower. And the moment that the prospect decides that there's greater value in acquiring what you offer than there is in the money I have to pay, price is not an issue.
Well, Dan Kennedy and I have always believed, first of all, we don't talk about price.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about value. And it's like the Gold Crown program. I say, compare this program with anything else out there. If it doesn't, it compares, there's no comparison to the program. So quality is what counts. Value is what counts. Price does not count. If you've got a value, it's like people that buy luxury. They're not worried about what something costs. If they want that luxury. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at price. If they're looking at price, they're going to go buy a Ford or a Chevy. They're looking at value, and value is what sells. Not now. If you're strictly going out there on price alone, you're gonna fail with that, because there's a lot of people out here on the internet that sell price. I mean, you can go out here all day. I mean, I'm Pete the Printer, and there's a lot of people out here who's going to go out and buy on price alone. And I'm thinking, okay, do you want to be in a mastermind with people who are successful, or do you want to learn from success, or do you want to learn from people that just are thinking about price? Price does not bring you business. Now, you'll get business from price, but what happens if you build your business from price, they're going to go to the cheaper person down the road.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time.
My deliverable, my core deliverable is video marketing. It's video marketing, video communications, and so forth. And I will proudly say that I am overpaid for what I do. You can go and you can
Wow.
find people who do what
Sure.
I do for half the price, a third of the price. I mean, Mark has been a client. He is a client. He'll tell you I'm overpaid. But what people are investing with me for is not to make the video. There's more that I bring to the table than just being able to film and edit videos, is that the knowledge and experience go far beyond it. And that really is what people are buying. So I want to get into one last subject and then wrap this up because we're coming close to our time. Okay, I know we could go on and talk about this, and we will in some other sessions. But the last thing I want to talk about briefly is referrals. And again, Jerry talked about it, Pete's talked about it, Mark talked about it, is referrals. So the last bastion of free business, I will say, that virtually has no marketing cost, is getting referrals. So Pete, talk about, you were in the insurance business, and I know you talked about when you sat at the table with people as to what you got.
Well, one of the first things I learned was I was selling myself. So when I'd sit down with clients at a table, I would never come into a house with applications, with a briefcase. I'd bring a legal pad with me and sit it down in the middle of the table with a pen, and I'd sit them around the table and I'd talk to them about, I'd have them bring all their insurance policies out on the table. They'd bring them out. John Hancock, New York Life, Prudential, they had policies everywhere. I said, you have a lot of policies here, but who's your insurance man? And they couldn't tell me. I says, I'm applying for the job. In other words, they didn't have an insurance man. They had a lot of insurance policies, but they had no professional to help them with their insurance. So I would apply for the job and I'd draw circles, and that was my first contact with them. They never heard that before. They never heard that. I'm applying for a job as your insurance man. So yeah, sure, they had a lot of insurance policies, but they had no professional to help them. And that's the key. And that's how you get your referrals. You get your referrals from being the professional. You're the professional, and they will bring people to you. They will bring people to you. And that's how you get your business. That's how we get our business in this. Other people refer us as coaches. Our program is second to none because we have the best coaches, and we've had the best coaches in this business. Jerry Jones was in the program for a long time, and Jerry's newsletter, everybody look forward to his newsletter.
And referrals, as you said, you're selling yourself.
Absolutely.
And understand that every one of your clients is willing to refer.
Oh, absolutely.
They're willing to refer. However, they have to be educated how to do. And unfortunately, where a mistake is made by a lot of people is expecting the customer to do the selling for you. And they're willing to refer you, but they're not willing to be a salespeople, nor are they capable of being your salesperson. So Mark, I'm going to call on you again. You still with us, Mark? Mark is there, but not there. So we're going to move on. So one of the mistakes I see with referrals mechanically is saying, hey, we would love to have you refer clients, your friends, your family members, your associates, your coworkers to us. Here's a business card. Here's a premium in order to get them to return. And my approach with referrals is always much more aggressive than passive. So what I just described, here's a card. We'd love you to give this to to your friends or family or coworkers and have them call us. Now, I've interviewed thousands upon thousands of my clients or patients. And one of the things that I ask them, do you refer Dr. Jones to your friends? And they say, yes. Why do you refer? Because he's wonderful. Do you know if your friend ever called Dr. Jones? I don't know. I have no idea. Okay? That's passive referrals. So here's a aggressive referral program that's not aggressive in the sense of put off people. Because again, as I said, they don't know how to sell. They're willing to refer, they don't know how to sell. Is that you need to arm them with tools to be able to refer that are of value. One of yours is a newsletter. You can arm clients and patients and people with newsletters and say, hey, I'm in the printing business, and I know printing doesn't always come up in conversation. However, when it does, I would love if you would give them my newsletter and tell them that we're the printer that you love and trust, and that you do your printing for you. The same thing can be done for dentists. You need to arm them with a tool that gets you in front of them. And the better way to do that is if you're capturing who that person is that they're referring to you. So now we're going back to lists. So do you see how all these things connect together? Is we're back to developing.
Well, your
a list.
best clients are a gold mine for referral.
Yes.
Your best clients, not the weakest clients, but your best clients are the ones to go to for referrals because they already appreciate your service.
Yeah. So I see Mark is back with us. Mark, I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to call on you again. There you go. I got you unmuted. So Mark, we're talking about referrals. And I've talked about how the difference between a passive approach on referrals and an aggressive approach on referrals. Whereas the passive is, for quick recap, if you didn't catch it, it's, hey, here's a business card. We'd love to have you tell your friends about us. And then we expect that referred person to take some kind of an action, as opposed to a more aggressive marketing smart, which is a way of getting that referral captured and or driving them back in or getting at least value in their hands. So Mark, why don't you talk about how you, in your business, you handle referrals, in generating referrals?
There's sort of two pathways. One is, my big lever is the newsletter. So in at least one, if not two of the articles out of the 3 that I write every month, I usually will loop the story and the explanation of the problem to a solution, and then say, if any of your children are having this problem, any of your friends are having this problem, any of your parents having this problem, have them call so we can talk about it so they don't make a mistake. Because there's things that you don't know that you don't know. Can't know what you don't know. Right. And I usually, at least one of the articles, usually 2, I loop it back to give me a call. I just finished writing my first book, and that's been my thing now. I've been saying to people, buy a copy for a friend, that sort of thing. But then the other part of it is using like centers of influence with other professionals. So CPAs, for example, financial planners. I have a pretty big network of those people that I stay in regular contact with because they're a great source of referrals. But I have to tell you, going right back to the conversation at the top of this program, my newsletter does the heavy lifting by far, absolutely by far, no question about it. I get more calls, I get white mail, I get emails, I get phone calls. It just is an ongoing situation where people send their children, their parents, their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, all from what I've been saying in the newsletter.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So you can see how all of these 4 things fit together. Lists, monthly newsletters, follow-up, referrals. They're all interconnected, and they're the 4 things that every business must do. Before I wrap this meeting up, I want to just open it up. Is there any questions that any of our people that are on with us that have a question? If you have a question, I don't know if you can unmute yourself. I've already found that out. I'll need to unmute you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of you as an unmute. I'm going to go through and ask all of them on mute. So I've unmuted Mark, and I've asked others to unmute. If you have a question, unmute yourself and just jump in with a question. I'm going to give you a few moments here, and then we'll move on. Anybody have any questions on what we've talked about so far today?
We haven't talked about the mastermind.
Well, I'm going to get into that. Yeah, that's where I'm going to wrap up there. I'm going to give an opportunity before we. So, okay. I have no questions. We've done such a great job that we have no questions. So I'm going to just put some others on here. I need to. Forgive me. All right. So I want to wrap this up. I appreciate everybody being with us. I want to talk briefly about, we've mentioned it many times, some of the people on the call have talked about it, but you've heard about the Gold Crown Business Coaching Program. And that is a program that Pete started many, many years ago. We went into great depth on it in the previous call, which we'll have the replay on that and that. But very quickly, Pete, talk about why you started the Gold Crown program. What we've talked about here today is a lot of the value that comes in it, but talk about why you started the Gold Crown program, what its purpose was, and basically, you know, if you go through who's the coach in it. And the thing I want you not to miss is that the mistake many people think about when they get in the Gold Crown program and they start receiving these monthly publications. We call them newsletters, but they're really not newsletters. They're seminars in a box. They're education, they're coaching, they're teaching. So don't miss this idea that this is not newsletters. This is coaching. So talk about why you started it and then who's in the program.
Well, again, Dan and I go back to the beginning with the mastermind. And this is a mastermind group. But what's unique about it, it's not a magazine, it's not a book, it's a monthly ongoing coaching program, and you're being coached by some of the top marketers in the country. And the value of it, and my wife always tells me this is priced way too low for what it's worth.
Yeah. I'm gonna sneak off camera. I'm gonna go grab a copy just so I can show it. So excuse
Well,
me.
you're talking about the it's right here.
Oh, you have a copy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm way ahead of you.
Oh, I'm glad you are, because I'm gonna kill myself.
I don't have them all in there.
Yeah.
It's the elite level.
Okay.
But
So
my wife says to me, she says the folder alone is worth more than a lot of the newsletters out here that we get every month. But there's enough value in this, and I don't care what one you pull out of there. My Legends of Marketing, the reason I came up with that is I'm a history guy. I believe I've always learned from history and other people and reading. I don't read fiction, I read autobiographies. And I've learned from the greats, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, all the way back. This month, Dan's laughing. This month's Legends of Marketing is the inventor of toilet paper. Now, I came up with that idea. One day I was thinking, now when did toilet paper start? So I looked it up, and this month's Legends of Marketing is the inventor of toilet paper, 1858. His name is Joseph Gaiety, and he came up with the idea of toilet paper. And up to that point, there was no toilet paper. I don't know what they used. You know, it says in there what they used.
what can you learn? What can you learn from the guy who invented toilet paper?
Yeah.
In 1857.
1858.
And don't miss the fact is that when did he invent it?
Yeah.
And how could he market it?
Yeah,
Couldn't
there you
do
go.
it on the web.
There you go.
He couldn't do it by email. He couldn't do it by television. Maybe radio. I don't know. For
Well,
fact.
it's the #1 commodity in the world right now, and he was the inventor of.
That's in that. So,
Yes.
why don't you talk about, God, I'm stumbling here. We've got, I didn't see the other piece in here and that, but there's 7 coaches.
There's 7.
Why don't you quickly talk about the 7 coaches?
Well, in the master level, we have Ben Glass, which is probably the top Dan Kennedy student in our group. Is a lawyer, attorney, marketer. He's taken it to the next level on his marketing. So he's in our group with his 2 newsletter and a monthly insert. And then we have Doberman Dan Gallipou, which actually spent 6 months with Gary Halbert, who's, as far as I'm concerned, was the #1 info marketer in the country. and he was my first client in the printing business. I was actually Gary Halbert's printer, and I learned direct mail from Gary Halbert. That's who I learned from, and he was a genius. Gary was a genius, and when he walked in my office the first day looking for a printer, I happened to be in the right place at the right time. But Gary walked in, and I became his printer. Told me what he did, and I told him, I says, "How can you make any money selling coats of arms to people?" And he says, "You'd be surprised." And he became my largest client. 10,000 sales letters a week, 10,000 postcards a week, and I'm thinking, this guy's spending a ton of money on direct mail. How does he? But he was making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And we did his program.
And Doberman Dan,
So,
who is one of the contributing coaches,
yes.
his monthly, what he teaches and what you learn
Yeah.
from him is really geared around copywriting.
And it's a lot of Gary Halbert.
A lot of Gary Halper principles
Yeah,
and
a
so
lot of
forth.
Gary Halbert.
So talk about Matt Fury.
Matt Fury. Well, Matt was actually, Dan and I started the Gold Crown program. Matt was probably, he bought the Maxwell Maltz program from Dan Kennedy. And now he does the, he actually, Matt Fury's program is actually the old psycho-cybernetics, but he's expounded upon it to the point where Matt has taken it up a bunch of notches. You'll learn from Matt the mind, he's the original out of the box thinker. Matt Fury is, and you couldn't have a better coach than Matt as far as controlling your mind, thinking out of the box, expanding your mind, and he's unbelievable. And Matt, I spoke at his boot camp, back in 2006. That's when we actually started with Matt, and he had a Get Tough boot camp, and we sell that DVD in the program. If you join the program, you get the actual my talk at his actual event. And Matt surrounds himself with fantastic people. He's got the greatest, he had the greatest wrestling coach of all time. Dan Gable was his coach, and Matt is somebody you can learn from.
So we've got Doberman Dan, Ben Glass, yourself.
And
you didn't talk about yourself a
Well,
little bit.
I go back to the beginning. Dan Kennedy and I started in '74 together. That's where we started. I mean, it was Dan and I. And when we came together, all hell broke loose.
The rest is history, as they say. So Dan Cricks.
Dan Cricks was one of the original members of the Gold Crown. Dan puts out an excellent newsletter per month, a marketing newsletter. He understands the mastermind principle, and you'll learn a lot just reading his newsletter.
Yeah. And then, not sure we covered everybody. Then I contribute a newsletter that is in relationship marketing.
Yes, that's the one I prompted you to do.
Yeah. 8 years ago, Pete in a Winking Lizard restaurant said, "You ought to do this." And I've done it.
We didn't have a relationship marketing newsletter. No, we needed one. And Ron is the ultimate relationship marketing guy. I mean, so his contributions actually comes full circle now with our mastermind program, which we're putting together.
Yeah. And then last but not least is Dan Kennedy. And I want to stress a point.
There's his
monthly goal. Letter from Dan Kennedy.
12-page monthly goal letter from Dan Kennedy every month.
The Gold Crown program is the only place where you will find fresh new content from Kennedy.
Right.
Kennedy is not writing for anybody else. So if you're seeing anything else, it says Kennedy, it's old stuff. It's not Dan's writing. But this is the only place that, and Dan has agreed to do a monthly letter from Dan Kennedy. And the July letter, some have told us, is the best thing they've ever read from Dan. And you'll find that if you follow Dan Kennedy at all, he's always had important stuff to say.
Mm-hmm.
And largely what we write about is what we've learned through experience and, boots on the ground and nose to the grindstone in that. And one of the things that you'll read and learn from Dan's new stuff is really, if it wasn't relevant before, it's much more relevant now, because of the experience that Dan went through over the last year, having almost died. And I say almost because there are some people out there that still believe Dan Kennedy is dead. Well, he's not dead. He's alive and
I've
kicking.
actually had arguments with people saying he's dead.
Yeah, so have I. So have I. So I want to wrap this up on two things because prepare yourself. I'm going to make you an offer. And if you came to this thinking that we were going to present an offer, you're absolutely right. But there's reason for that because I believe that in the last hour and a half or so, we've delivered quite a bit of content. We've a lot of value. And there's more of this kind of value that can be gotten on a monthly basis from the 7 coaches that contribute to this program. And I didn't know this until I just opened this. So this is August's issue. We've talked extensively about lists, newsletters, follow-ups, and referrals. And in this month happens to be, and part of the program is Dan Kennedy's letter, but also Dan Kennedy archive stuff. And this is from the archive. This is from 2004. This is from 2004, and it is specifically timely that we talked about this. This month's is a special report Dan wrote in 2004 on newsletters. So
and his success with newsletters,
and his success
and
with
my
newsletters.
success with newsletters.
Yeah. So
and that's how we came together.
So
with the newsletter. Now let me add to this now. Of course, Dan does not produce his LOS program anymore because of the situation he's got, but he does do the gold letter with us now, which is a real gold letter. And I have in our archives going back to 1979 original Dan Kennedy programs and Dan Kennedy things. So I'm pulling this stuff out of the archives. I call it Legends Dan Kennedy. Now this is the Legends part of the program is you're getting programs. Now a lot of people haven't been in this program that long. They haven't seen this information. This is going to be new information to a lot of people. And there are people in the program that have been in for years that haven't seen the information that I'm going to be coming out with Dan's Legend stuff. I've got original programs by Dan Kennedy that have never been released.
They've never seen the light of day.
Never seen it before. And I've got Dan Kennedy and I's original business format from First Class Magazine, which is going to come out. I'm going to have actually bring that out and show people Dan Kennedy's original layout program with First Class Magazine. Actually, one of his first actual production layouts. And I've got it here. Everybody will get a chance to see that.
Valuable gold.
Very valuable.
Within the Gold Crown program, no pun intended.
Yeah.
So,
and I talk about marketing your services. Used to be put out by Dan. Now this is put out by all of Dan's top marketers. I did it this month, but this month's marketing your services is the factors of predicting a person's success. That's very, very good this month. But Ron has written it, and a lot of our members have written it, the marketing. In fact, that edict came down from Dan. I want my marketing your services produced by my
pupils,
my successful marketers.
Yeah,
and that's what we're doing.
So, so I want to make you 2 offers. Is number one is membership in Elite Gold Crown program. If you're not currently a Gold Crown member, I encourage you to become a Gold Crown member. It is dirt cheap. You want to go and get the application in order to see how cheap. And we're not making it cheap in order to sell it.
No.
Because our objective, first of all, with Gold Crown is not to make money from this. It really is to provide the small business, the mid-sized business with the tools they need to grow and to get freedom, which is what they originally started the business to have.
The original Gold Crown program that we created, Matt Fury, Dan Kennedy, and I, was $197 a month. Now we've scaled it to $98 for master level and $78 for elite level. We've priced it basically to actually bring more people in, but also to keep it under the $100 price point. And and as Ron said, it's not a big money maker. I mean, in volume, it does well. But this is our final. This is to bring the mastermind.
Let's face it, folks.
I mean,
I'm in a small business. Pete's got a small business. We all have small businesses by American standards based on big business. And if you don't believe or you don't understand that small business is under attack, It's under attack from the government. It's under attack from the politicians. It's under attack from big businesses and so forth. Small businesses are the founding fabric of the United States. It is what built this country. It is what will save this country. And the purpose behind this program is to get back to the basics, is to get back to giving business owners, entrepreneurs, true entrepreneurs, the 1 out of 1,000%, the tools they need to be able to grow and gain the freedom, regardless of what the economic condition is. Because what you will learn from reading from each of the coaches each month is that you have a choice. You either have a choice to succeed or you have a choice to fail. Either way, the decision you make is yours. Okay, so we encourage you to get into the Gold Crown program, either as Pete said, the elite level at $78 a month, or the master level at $98 a month. Sparked beyond that is Pete and I have started the Gold Crown Millionaire Maker Mastermind Group, which is a return to the original definition of mastermind as defined by Napoleon Hill. And in order to be eligible to be in the Millionaire Maker Mastermind Group, you must be a Gold Crown member, either at the elite or the master level. As far as what you get as a mastermind member, and I'm going to just give you, it's in the application, which I'm going to give to you in a moment. Very briefly, is the most valuable thing you're going to get is a hot seat. So this is going to be a live mastermind meeting. We hope to make it a live get together here in Cleveland.
Twice a year.
Twice a year. If not, it will be virtual, depending on what the state of COVID.
Not ideal though. Virtual.
Yeah. We want it to be in person. But however, is that once you're a member in Gold Crown, the investment for one meeting, if you decide you only want to attend one meeting for the year, it's $100 additional investment on top of the Gold Crown membership. If you decide you want to do two mastermind meetings, it's an additional $200. So it's an additional $1,200 or $2,400 for the year to get mastermind access. And you've seen the value of what we do and the experiences that we've had. The people that you've heard from on this video and this Zoom call demonstrates the value and the level of expertise that the people we attract have. So this is probably the only remaining true coaching program and mastermind program available.
That's it.
So we encourage you, if you've gotten value out of what we've talked about today and what we've discussed and shared, then there's more to come. So I encourage you to do two things. The first thing is, and I'm going to send this out as an email. The first thing is to go to www.goldcrownbusinesscoaching.com/join.pdf. There's going to be no email to enter. There's going to be no registration. You're going to get the PDF. And there, when you go there, you're going to see two applications. The first application is going to be for Gold Crown membership. You choose either elite or master level. And there's also then going to be the mastermind group membership application. Okay, that's the first thing.
They can email you or I
Right.
for the information also.
Yeah, well, I'm going to send out a link, and they'll
Okay.
be able to click the link in after we're all done later today. So first thing to do is go to goldcrownbusinesscoaching.com/join.pdf. That's the first thing. The second thing to do is print it out and fill it out. All right. Now don't print it out and fill it out. And I want you to take that action, because the action of actually filling out the application will really force you to think about the type of person you are. All right. We want fast action takers. If you're in our mastermind group, you want other people who are like-minded, that are fast action people. These are people that are smart. These are people that take action. These are doers, shakers, and movers. So if you're that type of person, then you're going to go here, you're going to download these applications, and you're going to fill them out. And once you fill them out completely, and once you fill them out, you're going to reach a point that you're going to decide, is this for me? Yes. If so, you're going to email it back to Pete. And on the application, there is an email to Pete, which is a secure email. It is a secure. So when you're sending your financial information, the email going to him is secure. Or you can fax it to Pete. which is definitely secure. You know, it's archaic,
It's
but it's
archaic,
secure.
yeah.
And I'll tell you what, don't kid. We fax. That's the only communication I often have with Dan Kennedy. But download it, fill it out, and reach that point and finally decide. You've got to get to the tipping point. We are at a tipping point in business for small businesses right now. You need to decide, are you going to be successful or are you not going to be successful? You decide.
Well, you could already be successful, but to be more successful, this is a group to be in.
Good point. Good point.
Absolutely.
So that's your assignment. That's your homework, if you will. If you have any other questions and so forth, you can honestly email us, but I'm going to send that out as a link so that you can download it. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time on a Saturday, taking the time out of your schedule on a Saturday. We really appreciate you being
Yes.
here. If this at all demonstrates the value and appreciation that we have for our people, our peeps, as some will say, this demonstrates it. I mean, we've spent the entire morning with you all, and we want you to be successful. And we can only do that by being able to connect through Gold Crown and through the Master.
I'll tell you how valuable it is to me. I'm 74 years old. I'm not retired yet because I enjoy this kind of thing. I don't believe in retirement. I don't believe in, you know, I sold retirement, and retirement is, as far as I'm concerned, is a hoax. Retirement is set up by the government, the banks, and the insurance companies to take your money. And basically, you should never retire. You should use your money until you die.
Yep.
That's all I can tell you.
And you should enjoy it.
You
So,
should enjoy yourself.
any last thoughts? Any last
That's
comments?
my last thought.
All right. Thank you, friends. Appreciate you being here. We're going to sign off as I usually do. Thank you. Please be successful and stay safe. And go to that. And we look forward to working with you and having you as a member. I'm going to sign off if I can find it. Have a wonderful Saturday. Have a wonderful weekend. Make sure that you spend time with your family and really appreciate that you have around you. Thank you.